Others may be joining, but I again like to honor everybody's time and an agreement. It's to me, it's an agreement. And let me introduce our speaker tonight. Mr. Baker has 40 years of experience as a teacher and school leader in Idaho, Washington State, and then internationally, Finland, Tanzania, Thailand, Norway, and Egypt. He was the deputy head of school at the International School Bangkok and head school at Oslo International School. Head of the school at Oslo International School in Oslo, Norway, and Schutz American School in Alexandria, Egypt. Tom is passionate about youth leadership development, peace education, and service learning. A Rotarian since 2014, he has served as his club's International Service Committee Chair, Youth Exchange Officer, and just finished his year as club president, as well as a valuable member of the District 5450 Peace Committee. Thomas also was the head of the International Program Development for Peace Jam. So with a background like that, I'm anxious to hear from our speaker tonight, Tom Baker.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jim. Looking forward to spending an hour together. The topic for this presentation is 2 ways of talking. And so I'm going to share my screen and get right into the PowerPoint here. So here's a little cartoon for you. Woo, that was close. We almost decided something. How many of you feel like that sometimes in a meeting where you're not sure what's happening? Are you just shooting the breeze? Are you talking about something, or are you making an important decision? And I think there's a lot of frustration sometimes in meetings because we're not sure what we're doing. And sometimes we think we're just having a discussion and all of a sudden a decision has been made that you didn't even know was going to be made, and it's happened, and people kind of walk away shaking their head. Well, I learned some concepts about 20 years ago at a week-long seminar. It's called Adaptive Schools Developing and Facilitating Collaborative Groups. That really helped me a lot in my work and helped me also in any meeting that I have to run or any meeting that I'm participating in because of this concept. And so I want to share this concept with you. So the 2 ways of talking are dialogue and deliberation. Sometimes they look the same. When you're in the middle of it, you don't know exactly, but they have really different purposes, and they're different kinds of discourse. So the dialogue is really an exchange of ideas and opinions. That's straight from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's a really divergent discourse. So we're trying to get lots of ideas, and it's meant to lead to better understanding through inquiry. So we're inquiring, we're trying to learn, we're trying to gain understanding. Where deliberation is an act of thinking about or discussing something and deciding carefully. So it's about making decisions. It's a convergent discourse, which is meant to lead to a decision through advocacy. So people are promoting their ideas, and we're trying to get a decision. So any question about these two types of talking in meetings? You have a good idea what they're about? Well, the trouble is we often can be in a meeting when we think we're having a dialogue. We're just trying to gain understanding, get better insight into something, learn about something, when there are some people in that meeting that think it's about trying to solve something, and they have an idea and they're pushing their idea and they want the group to accept it. causes a lot of problems and leaves people frustrated. Deliberation is where you're really trying to get to a decision, and you want people to really promote and advocate their ideas. But as we go on in this presentation a little bit, I want to share some ideas how to do that in a way that's can be productive. So what I'd like to do, Jim, how many people do we have?
16, 17.
Okay, so we're going to go to breakout rooms. And this is what I want you to do in the breakout room of 2. Talk about a time that you were in a conversation that you think was truly a dialogue, and what was it like and what did it look like to you? And then also maybe one person share about a time that you're in deliberation, and what did that look like, and how did that go?
You just don't go in.
And then finally, see if you can talk about a time that you thought you were in a dialogue and maybe a few people there thought it was a deliberation, and how did that work out? Is that clear? So we'll give you about 5 minutes or more to, in a group of 2, to talk about your experience with dialogue and deliberation. So Jim, you'll make the groups.
Jim, you're muted.
How many in a group?
2.
And when you have the opportunity, you will just click on join the room. And are you seeing the rooms? Yeah. A lot of rooms will end up with 3.
That's okay. Three's fine. So Jim,
Yes.
we can,
How long should we go?
I think about 5 minutes, but I can jump in and listen to what they're talking about, can I?
Yes.
Where I click join.
Yeah.
Let me just see if that works.
Yeah, you can go in and out. You're a co-host. And
I just dropped in one room. They were busy talking. we want to give them a little time to chat with each other.
Now they've had about 3 minutes.
Yeah, give them more time because there's 3 people now, so we should probably give them a little more time.
Okay,
I think there's 3 in every room now.
except for one.
Mhm.
Room 5 has 2. Oh God, Bill Timpson and Randy Butler is in the same room together.
That's a chance.
It should be an interesting conversation.
So do you feel like that was enough information just to get them started?
I like the concepts. I thought we might have been able to develop it a little bit more, but no, it's a good idea. Peggy
Yeah.
liked it. Good concept, and we never really thought about those words in that way, quite frankly. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
So when we come back, I'm going to have just a couple people share, not everybody.
well, now you've got five rooms. So if you could have 5 or somebody from every room share.
I'm not going to have every room share.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
just going to, I just want to get them, I wanted to get them talking with each other, and the next part is just to see if people got the concept.
Got it.
Mhm. So these concepts are really, I think, really important if you're leading a meeting and how you design the meeting. If you're trying to get to a decision, or you're just trying to get greater understanding around something, and how you structure that.
Then
But-
I love the concept. I think, everybody thinks they're going to a decision, but like
Yeah.
you say, many times you wonder what.
Yeah, and then it's also good, even if you're not leading the meeting, so you can kind of understand what's happening to you. Why are you feeling a little bit uncomfortable? Why are you feeling pressured when you think we're just really trying to get to a greater understanding of what the problem is, or what the situation is? We're not trying to solve it yet.
One thing, so it's been about 6 minutes, and I forget. It says close all rooms, but when I click on that, I forget if it closes it or if I get to choose how. I think I should be able to tell them it's 60 seconds to go. So
Yeah, why don't you tell them it's 60 seconds?
The worst case scenario, it may close the room. All participants have been.
That's not a problem.
Everybody has been given 30 seconds. So in 30 seconds, they're going to come back whether they want to or not.
Okay.
Here comes somebody.
Yeah, they're popping out a little bit.
Hello, Denise.
Hello, I came back too early. I saw a red button and thought I was.
There's no too early.
Okay.
That's fine.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, William.
How's life?
It's fantastic.
Yeah. We had a great conversation. I had a great conversation with Randy.
Well, it's easy to have a great conversation with that man.
Oh,
You
man.
guys you're too kind.
And he's
Okay,
been-
do we have everybody back?
Yes, we do.
I'd like to have 3 people to share, maybe one person to share a dialogue experience they had that they felt was really good. It was a divergent discourse that led to greater understanding through inquiry. And then somebody to talk about a deliberation where they were carefully made a decision following a process. And then somebody to share maybe a disaster where it was really confused between dialogue and deliberation. Who'd like to talk, share a dialogue situation?
Well, I'm going to recommend Randy to talk about dialogue in the Balkans. He was there as a mediator. So Randy, can I volunteer you?
Oh, my. Well, it was certainly a great example of dialogue to achieve understanding and not about deliberation. We had young adults who had been identified as potential future leaders in their respective countries from all the different ethnic regions. And we would, in the initial phases, in the early years of that project, we literally brought them together for 3 weeks, and it would take 1 week just to build relationships. And only in the second week did we actually talk about what happened in the Balkans and just how horrible it was.
Were
And of
you the
course,
facilitator, Randy?
I was one of the facilitators, co-leader of the project. And
So talk about how carefully you designed the activities and protocols to keep it in the inquiry area.
we were very deliberate about that. And so we put a lot of thought into it and how to first different kinds of activities just to build relationships. And then when we actually started real dialogue, we would have what Krista Tippett, I guess, would call big muscular questions, but generous muscular questions, but a lot of open-ended questions that really required a good bit of thought and understanding, and to be able to talk about, and a lot of talking about who they were as people.
Yeah.
We would take an empathy walk, for example, in which they would talk about high times, low times, family of origin, heroes, and when have you experienced the transcendent in your life, something that's bigger than you.
Okay,
That's just
thank
an
you.
example. Yeah.
So let's, is somebody willing to share about a deliberation that they think really went well and what it was like? Don't be shy. I know Rotarians are people of action, so I know you make decisions. So share a deliberation.
I think would be sort of self-serving, right? Because I was going to bring up Jim Halderman and the way he runs the Peace Committee. I feel like we've put together this series of forums and everything through a process with very deliberate agendas to, what are we going to accomplish at this meeting? And I've really been really impressed with the organizational element of a deliberation that I think has produced a pretty good series of forums.
So one of the things that Jim did well is he clarified the task. So
And he
people
kept
know,
everyone on task.
and so people knew what we were trying to decide instead of, who was going to decide it. We were
Right.
going
And
to do it together.
Right. And he always kept, at least 5 minutes at the end of a scheduled amount of time to say, okay, what are we going to do? And
Okay.
create a clear list of to-dos.
Okay, thanks, Greg. How about, is there anybody could share a meeting that you weren't quite sure if it was a dialogue or a deliberation, and it just maybe like that first cartoon, we almost made a decision, or anybody want to share an experience?
Well, I shared an experience from quite a few years ago, but I worked in a school district, and the faculty was called together to do a really well-designed brainstorming, problem-solving session. The faculty would break into small groups, return to large groups, brainstorm alternative solutions to all these issues and problems that came up, felt very involved and included, and we're pretty excited. And then as the weeks went on, they came to realize that all their work kind of fell on deaf ears. They weren't making the decision. They were just presenting information that would be, and decisions would be made elsewhere. So it was quite disappointing because they didn't understand that up front.
Yes, you thought you were involved in the decision-making process when in fact you were just um, dialoguing about this and maybe sharing ideas, and you weren't deciding at all. That's very frustrating for people when they
It
think
was.
they're making a decision and they're not. Okay, thank you for all that. We're going to go to the next slide. How do I view this so I can look at my slide and not at all these people? I've got the no view.
Maybe if you went to speaker view before you went into share screen.
Yeah, it's okay. Here we go. So I wanted to share this model with you. Are you with me? I can't see you, so.
But
There's
we
no,
don't have it up yet, Tom. It's not up yet.
Oh, okay. It's on my screen.
Yeah, so go completely back out and come back in again.
Okay. So I have to go down and I have to go back in.
And then did you hit the share screen button
Um,
in the lower right-hand corner?
okay, I'll hit share screen.
And it-
Okay.
And it's worked.
Okay.
Big Tom.
Okay. So this is the model that takes these concepts to a deeper level. When you look at dialogue, the purpose is understanding, as we've talked about. And it's really more about listening than speaking. It's to explore, to inquire, to try to get deeper understanding of people's ideas, opinions, assumptions, so that you're learning. Where deliberation, it's really about deciding, and ideas should win. There are certain structures that help to support a dialogue, and one of those is providing a dialogue discussion with some guiding questions, so for people to discuss together. Another structure is process protocols. So when Randy was talking about his work in some of the activities they did, those were really process protocols with an idea to get people to a certain level. Now, when you're trying to make a decision, you also have a structure. And in this model, they say, define the sandbox. What are we doing here? It's really essential that you are clear on what we are deciding together. What is the task? What are we trying to decide? A second part of that sandbox is authority. Who is making the decision? Is it the leader? Is it the leader with group input? Is it left to individuals? I think when Bob was talking about his experience, they went through all this process and it wasn't clear who was deciding. And then what type of decision are they making? Are they just informing the administration or the club? Or are they just giving a recommendation, or do they have the authority to make the decision? So in the example that Greg gave, when we were setting up forum for discussion, Jim made it clear that as we put together this, it was going to be a group decision on what we were going to do and how to do it. Process is really important. There's lots of ways to make decisions, but when you go into decision-making deliberation with a group, you need to let the group know how that decision is going to be made. Now, a lot of groups think once they've made the decision, they're done, but no, you got to be clear on how and to whom that decision will be communicated. So both dialogue and deliberation have some structures that can really make them more effective. Now there's different processes that you can use, but whatever you're doing, try to have one task and one process for that task. When you look on the side of dialogue, there's lots of different examples, hundreds of protocols. Maybe you've done a round robin where you just go around and everybody shares their idea around something. There's a protocol type called final word, where somebody gives their idea and you go around the group, and people don't share new ideas, but they try to elaborate on that person's idea. And the person in the end gives the final word about what they met. And it's interesting, just like that game of telephone that you have, those ideas can really grow. And you guys know about a World Cafe where you have different groups talk about different topics or different guiding questions. And we did, I think we did the sharing at the last in-person district conference that way with a World Cafe. I want to focus this last part on some different processes for deliberation, and one that I found useful in my work, and concepts as well. The first one is called focusing for. So focusing for, the focusing for process, they call it the for process because there's 4 steps in it. And a lot of this will seem quite familiar to you, especially the first part, because we do a lot of brainstorming where we say, let's brainstorm ideas. Somebody writes them on the board. But in this process, you want to give people a chance to present an option for a solution or an idea for a program and put it on the board. But you want to discourage criticisms or questions at this time. You don't want people to say, well, we've tried that before, or, you know, that won't work, or questioning them at that time. So you get everybody's idea up. The second step is to clarify options and ask anybody in the group if there are any items that need to be clarified, and the author of that item then can provide clarification to it. So you've got the ideas up, and you've had people to kind of inquire in a little bit more in the ideas. Once again, we're trying to see the positive, not the critical at this point. The third part gets to the advocacy. And remember, when we go back in the model, that deliberation is really about making a decision, getting the best ideas. And this is the time for people to really promote their idea, or other people in the group to promote ideas that they think are good. So I may have put up an idea, but Jim Halderman put up an idea and I think his idea is fantastic. So Jim might get up and promote his idea, give the reasons why we should do this. And then I might follow and say, yeah, I agree with that. I'd like to promote that too. I think it would really do X, Y, and Z. The important thing is keep the statements of advocacy in the positive. You don't want to be critical. You don't want people to start saying, well, you know, I don't think that'll work, you know, that costs too much or whatever. The statements of advocacy must be brief, and people can promote as many times. Have you ever been in a meeting where somebody has an idea and they share the idea, and they get a feeling that people aren't going to go with their idea, so they got to get the floor again, and they got to give you more reasons why you should do this. And then if there are questions, then they come back and say, yeah, but, and they just keep pushing and pushing the idea. You've probably had that experience. This step really takes that away, because you give them as many times to say their word, advocate. Then the fourth is just to canvas to prioritize opinions. If you're a small group, you can take a hand count. If you're a larger group, you can ask people to put dots on their top 3 ideas. And then from there, you can go, you've limited it down to a few, and you can go through that process. You can go back to the advocacy again and more discussion, and go back to the process. I've done this, one example where I use this with my, in Rotary is the beginning of last year, we were talking about, we need some new fundraisers for the club. So I called together a group of people who wanted to talk about fundraising, and I took them through this process. We had lots of ideas, but the process helped people it's efficient because people get their say about what they want to do and how they want to do it. And then the best ideas win as we come through. Any question about the focusing for process?
Tom, I'd love to discuss a little bit, number one, discourage criticisms or questions. One of the challenges that I see in Rotary clubs and committees and elsewhere is that there are those quiet people that are afraid to share their ideas. There's always, in every group, there's always a leader or there's somebody that's highly respected. And there's sometimes energies that cause people not to want to share ideas. And I'm sure you as a school teacher, there are students, I'm guilty that, yeah, I know the answer, but I'm just not comfortable sharing because somebody else is more important or something, I don't know. But what are the reasons why we might not want to share?
Well, one of the reasons I think is the people don't want to have an idea and then everybody tell them it was a bad idea.
What a dumb idea.
What a dumb idea. And in this one, no one's ever going to say it's a dumb idea. They're going to spend their time promoting what they think are the best ideas. And usually, if you in a group, if you have enough people, then you're probably going to get a good idea of what are some of the best ideas or ideas that the group really could support. Okay, it's a good process to use to help when you're trying to take a lot of ideas and get down to one that you can do. Another concept that I think is really important is in deliberation is this concept of sufficient consensus. There was a time, I know in schools where everything was consensus. We're going to just keep deliberating until everybody agrees. Well, that got really, it wore people out because it's hard to find the best option because you don't maybe know what the best option is. But a sufficient consensus is the type of decision that has been reached when most of the members of the group agree on a clear option and the few that oppose it think they've had a reasonable opportunity to influence the choice. The key thing is all members need to agree to support the decision. And remember, we're not necessarily seeking the ideal option or decision. We're trying to get one that's sufficient and we can move ahead with action. And this is a good way to move a group in making a decision that you want to have all the people supporting. But the key caveat is that in order for a person to support the decision, they must feel that they've had reasonable opportunity to influence that decision. And these are some of the things that they've had a chance to clearly state their position. They feel like they've been heard and understood, and their concerns have been addressed. And they understand what the decision is being made. And if you go back to the sandbox, that's why these things are really important, to know what the task is, who's really deciding the decision, the process you're using, and that sort of thing. Any question about sufficient consensus or comment?
I just wanted to, I'd heard this approach called alignment. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing that I understood as alignment, in that everyone gets heard. You make an attempt at least to address all concerns, but you don't leave the room until everybody agrees that they understand that this was the sufficient or best approach that the people present could agree to, and everybody should at least, I mean, it depends on there being a level of respect for the other people, the other decision makers, the other people in the room.
Right.
Because you have to basically say, well, I still don't agree with maybe this part, but I respect, how this decision was made, and therefore I will support it.
Right. Point. Any other comments?
Yeah, I've got a comment. In my work in Northern Ireland, after 400 years of violence and conflict, to get to the peace process took incredible persistence, perseverance, resilience, courage. So at a big level, it can take an awful lot, but the rewards are there.
Yeah. It takes time. Anyone else want to share? Okay, so let's go on. Let me see. So how do you know you have sufficient consensus? Well, here's a real simple technique that you can use in committee meetings or larger meetings to really get to that. I call it the let's see process. It's a thumbs up, means I can support the decision that we've decided. I think it's either the best or a workable option. You notice we're lowering the expectation. It doesn't have to be the best option, but it has to be a workable option that everyone can support. Thumbs sideways means you have concerns. I have some concerns that need to be heard and addressed. So this is their opportunity. If they feel that they have enough concerns that either they don't think it's workable or that they can support, they can share that concern, and the group can try to address that concern and maybe come up with maybe a little bit of change to the decision or the option that was collected. Has anybody used anything like this before and found it helpful?
We use consensus in my HOA, and we actually have colored cards. So we have a red card, which means that you're going to block it. You completely disagree with it. You have an orange card, which means that you're going to, you have concerns, but you're going to step aside. And then a green card means that you agree with the decision. Okay,
that's a little bit different. And I've seen the thumbs with the thumbs up. I support it. I'll do it. Sideways, I have concerns, and then thumbs down. And I got rid of that working because it's so negative to see somebody with their thumb down, right? Or a red card. If they have concerns, they need to share the concerns, because we don't want them to go away from this meeting, not really happy with the decision because they have a legitimate concern, but they didn't share it. This way they have the opportunity. They can't just, I'm blocking it, that sort of thing. But I think these are all good ways to get to decisions and move ahead.
And what I like about that, your last comment, Tom, is that in terms of getting to creative, innovative ideas, sometimes it takes listening to the other side a little more deeply and taking the time, and then you can break through the prevailing paradigm and get to something new.
Yeah, and somebody may have not thought of that concern, and when it's brought to the group, they go, "You're right," and so we need to maybe adjust this. But it's done at this point in the process, and not when the ideas are on the table and you're trying to form an opinion and with a lot of criticism. You're getting to something, and then you can share your concerns after people have, most of the people think it's a good way to go.
And Tom, Randy has his hand up.
Go ahead, Randy.
I was just going to say, I've used a similar process to what you just described, but did it just a little differently. And the context was where I've used it, where I was really happy with the outcome, was with a group of 52 diverse leaders in Houston coming up with policy changes and initiatives that would need to be undertaken in order to become a successful multi-ethnic community. And so the process I used was very similar to yours, but we had three ways to do it. Thumbs up was, I love this proposal. I am all in. Thumb sideways is, yeah, I may have some concerns and I've had a chance to talk about those, but I can go along with it. I won't be against it. And then thumbs down was, no way, I will support this. And then, but the caveat was, if your thumb was down, you had to say,
Yeah.
but here's what it would take to make my thumb go sideways or up. And this group of leaders came up with some pretty amazing proposals, all on consensus. So I love what you're talking about, and I love the let's see process. I guess
Let's
the C
see where
stands
we
for
are.
is that C standing for consensus?
Yeah, no, it's for I can support. I have concerns.
Oh,
But it's
okay.
kind of playing words.
Okay. Got it.
Let's
Yeah.
see where we are.
Great.
Those two C's.
Tom Bill Timpson has his hand up.
Okay.
The other thing that I've found useful is to put the suggestion on the table. If it seems like an impasse, is there something we can decide on on a tentative level that we could implement on a trial basis? And if it's a trial
Yes.
basis, then people can get on board. Okay, and let's collect some data and see, and then move forward.
That's good.
Yeah, that might move somebody from their thumb sideways to be able to support a trial basis. But then you have to follow through that it is a trial basis and come back to the group.
That's right.
Yeah. Any other comments? This is good. I mean, you all are involved in meetings and have experienced different things that have worked. So, okay, I want to share one other slide. So how do you actually execute this? And what I've found is you can utilize your agenda building for dialogue and deliberation. And so this is a structure that I've used in my work as a head of school and a principal. And then also I use this with my Rotary board this year. I didn't really spend a lot of time training them or talking to them about dialogue and deliberation, but I always had this at the top of the agenda. Dialogue is, we're trying to do understanding. Deliberation, we're informing, recommending, or deciding. So I had what the task is that we were, or the agenda item. And then I always tried to put some guiding questions that would help us think about what we need to do. And then in this one, what would be, if there needed to be some more information and background or the process we were going to use, I would put it here. And then here was the code. So in this one, it was informing and deciding the person who was presenting it in at the time. So this particular item was, we were considering and we were to consider and approve a project to show appreciation to Golden educators and police. So, you know, in Rotary, a lot of things are done by committees, right? You give committees a budget and you give them things to do, or you get a task force to come up with something. Well, we had a small group that said we should do this. And so they put together a recommendation, but it wasn't a budgeted thing. So it had to come to the board for a decision if they were going to fund this project. So the I is for informing. So they were informing what the project would look like that they had designed. And the D was a decision by the board. And it didn't take very long because we were all very much in support of it, and we had thought through, how to fund it. The second one is we hadn't had a golf tournament last year during the pandemic, so we got a couple of our members that said they would try to put together a golf tournament. So this was to review preliminary plans for a golf tournament. These were some of the guiding questions. And this was the background. So we weren't making any kind of decision, but we were trying to understand what their plans were, where they were going to have it, what level of support they needed from the club. So this was earlier in the year. It was more of a dialogue for understanding. So it's just agendas can be a tool to help you get that one task, one process, delineate whether this is a dialogue you're having where you're getting understanding through inquiry, or it's a deliberation where you're either informing a recommendation or actually deciding. So I'm just gonna go back to the model. I want to go into breakout rooms again. So we'll probably have about
How long is this meeting?
about 5 minutes or more. And what I'd like you to do is talk in your breakout room about how can you use this concept, 2 ways of talking during meetings, to enhance and improve your meetings as a Rotarian, either committee meetings or club meetings or whatever. So how can you apply these concepts as a Rotarian as you meet? So Jim, can you put, and then we'll have people share some ideas. Jim, can you put them into breakout rooms? Three in a group is fine.
The answer to your question is yes. And are they up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Karen needs to be assigned. Too much talking?
Let me, oops.
There you go. She's in there now.
Okay. You can see it. Good for you. No, the material is fantastic. I love the material. I think there's room for more discussions. That last slide, I think, was hugely valuable. I could learn a lot from that. I still think, to me, back on the one slide, I got that you didn't want to talk about it. The number one item, what are the challenges that people won't share ideas? And I think there's a lot more than got touched on.
Yeah. But a part of it is they have to feel safe to share their idea, and that and their input is welcome and wanted.
You're jumping into the tell mode when you're trying to create a dialogue.
What?
You were jumping into the tell mode when in reality we're trying to create a dialogue.
Okay.
What are the reasons? And I just think there's room for discussion on that.
Yeah. Okay.
The other one that I was way back there, you mentioned a word that is hugely big with me, with authority, who has the right. In sales training, it was a very big issue. A lot of people, salesmen working with corporate. In a corporate position, there are many, many people that have the right to say no. but not very many people that have the right to say yes. And so how do you know you're dealing with somebody with the sufficient authority? Because I
Right.
don't want to tell you I don't have the right to say yes. I feel powerful just to tell you no. I don't want to be bothered by that. So finding out who has the authority is a very big issue. Loan officers every loan officer has a loan limit. What if you want to borrow just a little bit more than his limit? Would he share with you? I'm not important enough to go that high, or would he just negate you? So the authority is a very big issue in many different places.
Yeah, yeah.
To me,
And Bob gave a great example. And schools are really guilty of that, getting people together and thinking they're there to make a decision when we're just trying to indoctrinate them.
and I thought Timpson's example of Northern Ireland was powerful also.
Yeah, yeah. So we got 5 minutes, so maybe we should get back, or so we have time to wrap up.
Oh, you got 6 minutes. You can go a couple over. I like to.
Okay. Okay. Whenever you feel we can come back.
30 seconds. I'll give him 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So good material. If somebody asks for the slides, is that available?
Yeah, sure.
And we never know. Did you see Peggy's chat?
No.
She likes it.
Boy, Jim, that's impressive. There was no negotiation about leaving the small group. It's done. Get the hell back into the large room, man.
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
say.
Non-negotiable.
My thumb is sideways, though. I have concern.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, what's the alternative to dialogue or deliberation? There's another D that comes to mind.
What is it?
Dictatorship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will leave your room
And you will like it.
and you will like it.
So let's just take a few minutes. You had a chance to, take a look at these concepts. I'm sure you're aware of them, maybe looking at it in a little bit different structure or model. How do you think you could use these concepts to help make your meetings as Rotarians more effective?
Well, one thing that comes to mind, I'm on the international programs and grants, and the chair directs it, and everybody always seems to be in a hurry, get it done and get it over with. And I find that sometimes undermines process and thinking, and so I'd be alert to setting a time and holding people to stay at the table and have the conversations.
You don't need to be on that committee, yeah.
Challenge with that is that often there isn't sufficient time, right? A lot of these decisions need a lot more time and people just don't have the time. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think part of it is planning your meetings so that you have time for the things that you need to do and don't put in too many things. Otherwise, it's what's the purpose if you're not taking the time that you need? And that's the part of the meeting convener or the facilitator to think through the time that you need and the process that you need to go through.
Tom, do you think it's valuable to share this process, not keep it a secret, but to share what we're going to do and how we're going to proceed so that they're not uninformed about, here's something that works and let's try it.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think most groups will, if you share the process that you're doing and explain it, they'll at least give it a try. And if it's good process, they'll benefit from it.
Mhm.
So Tom, I'm wondering if your experience is, if you would agree with something that I've just found, and that is if you have the opportunity, it's a really good idea to have a dialogue, some kind of dialogue process that builds understanding within the group so that they actually build trust and understanding, and then do a deliberation process, and somehow it just goes so much better because you already trust each other. You know,
Right.
I know that we don't always agree, but I like this person. This person has shared a lot about who they are and how they got to be who they are, and we've had, in fact, that I guess in all these processes that I've been involved in, what finally dawned on me was maybe the most important thing to do with a group is to provide an opportunity for empathy, for them to actually have an empathic connection so that they know, hey, we can hang in here together. And then I love what you presented on the deliberation of how to, everything that you said. I don't need to review it all.
I think, Brandy, it kind of depends on where your group is and how much time you need to build a level of understanding and trust. Clearly, in the South Sudan with warring groups, you needed a lot of time to do that before you could deliberate. But I think even in when we start a new program year with our avenues of service, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a good dialogue about international service. You know, what is international? What does it mean to you? And before we start jumping into the budget and picking projects that we're going to support, just to kind of get people's heads and hearts in there. The same with community service. Before you ever identify things, it could be a good way to go deeper in your service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's by the way, there's a great process I was introduced to by a guy at Case Western, a colleague of David Cooperrider, and it was a process put together by Elise Bolding, who I think Bill mentioned earlier, and it's an appreciative inquiry design summit that starts with sharing your values, what so like for the city of Houston, it would be that project. It would be, well, what do you appreciate most about this city? What are the strengths of this city? And what strengths are you bringing to the table? And I found it to be a very effective. I used it with the Sudanese, used it in Croatia. But again, you got to build the relationships first. Luckily over here, for the most part, I used to think we were getting along with each other. Now I'm not so sure about that, given the depth of polarization. So I think we may even need to spend more time building understanding than we've ever thought about in order to be able to make those decisions.
And what I saw up close is in Northern Ireland, getting victims and ex-convicts together. It took a whole weekend to build some trust, and it took guidance. Somebody like you, Tom, or Randy, to sit and say, this is how you listen, this is how you empathize. And the results were miraculous, but it did take 2.5 days and guidance to make that happen.
You're dealing with some pretty raw stuff, though. I'm doing that.
That's right.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think if you come away from this hour, if you can have that concept, there are two ways of talking in meetings, dialogue and deliberation, and they're very different. But in each of those kinds of discourses, you need to have a clear task and a process to get through that task.
Yeah.
And if you are someone who's in charge of a committee, you need to really think that through as you put together your agenda and put it together. But even if you're in a meeting, just having this concept, you can at least understand what's happening to you. You think you're in a dialogue, and all of a sudden there are members jumping into promoting ideas, advocacy. And so it's a time to stop.
I was just thinking that, how do you keep the two separate when you're trying to run a meeting with a bunch of people?
You can clarify. You say, now what is our task here? And, I think that we need a little more time just to discuss this issue before we go into deliberation or before we go into a decision-making process. Or if you're in a decision, if you are in a deliberation and you see that it's not clear what you're deciding, who's deciding, what kind of decision, you can ask those clarifying questions. And that can help guide the group. Or at least if you walk away totally frustrated from a meeting, you know why.
Tom, there are some that need to leave. So I want to make just a couple of closing. And I think every club president should have this class before they become president. Meetings would be, it's something that needs to be taught at PETS. Even the committee chairs, this was very valuable. It could save a lot of us a lot of time. And we thank you very much for the material. Next week, we have once again, and yes, Tom, we thank you. And we will all benefit from this. Next week too, we have a very exciting program. Ron Green, who is practices.
You mean next month or next week?
Oh, we don't want to do it next week, I guess. All right. We'll do it next month. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. But I'm excited for this one. So next month, hang on, Dennis. We'll be talking, Ron Green, who practices the art of developing. Ron Green practices the art of developing holistic cross-discipline curriculum for diverse learners. He holds a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and Ron's taught professionally and internationally at all ages and grade levels, from early childhood to higher education. Since initiating his career as an educator teaching theater and arts and outdoor education, Ron is focused on multilingual environments, literacy development, cultural and environmental sustainability, horticultural and natural play. You will get in the mail the long bio of him. It's a very impressive program. He'll be talking about mindfulness. We also will be learning about the Epic Ethics program, the sixth grade ethics-based social and emotional learning curriculum that promotes responsible decision-making, empathy, community mindfulness, and critical thinking. It's going to be an exciting program next month, and look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
Hey, Jim, did you record tonight? Did you record this as?
Yes, I finally remembered to hit record.
Great, thank you.
So if there's any requests to rehear and or any other information from Tom, let me know and we will see to it that you get it.
Great. Great program. Thank you all.
Thank you all. And again, Tom, we thank you.